All right, guys, we're back with another episode. We got a change of location. We're actually out at Bissell Maple Farm. We're here on the actual maple farm here with Nate Bissell. Nate, why don't you give us a little bit of background about Bissell Maple, I guess? Give us
Sure,
the origin story, if you will.
sure. So this is, this is my dad's paradise. My mom and dad.
Anybody's paradise,
Right?
here.
I mean,
It's beautiful.
some cool things. I didn't realize what growing up. I grew up actually north of Jefferson, on Route 46, and 14 acres, and grew up most of my childhood there. And my parents bought this place right as I graduated high school.
Okay.
So I didn't spend a. I spent 3 months here, in all reality. But my dad always made syrup on Route 46. So any OG Ashtabula County resident driving from Jefferson to Ashtabula would have seen my dad's sap buckets on a tree, and it was something that he did that I really enjoyed. And but I didn't help him. I was more interested in girls and football.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
And so he did it. Like there's dad right there. But he's more of the gardener and the caretaker. And as soon as I went to college, they didn't have pure maple syrup at the cafeteria, and I didn't. It's like I missed it. Like I never had fake syrup. I always had the real thing growing
Right.
up, and everybody else is kind of the opposite. So when I went to college, I missed it, and I came home. And first spring break, my dad had moved his little maple operation right there where that sugar house sits, and he had basically a tarp keeping the rain off his neck and the original little evaporator.
Really?
And I'm like, Dad, we're gonna, improve this, and made a little shack, literally a shack. It had walls on two sides just to kind of keep the wind down. We just grew it, and there's been like 6 additions on this building. This used to be our firewood shelter.
Really?
We would store our firewood in, and then we had a pancake breakfast. We started doing with family at the beginning, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we fixed this up, and it's just been made a lot of mistakes, getting to this point. But I think about the history a little bit and how I eventually got evicted. And that's what happened is there was a tour bus came through, and my mom came outside to get the dog, and she was in her robe. So there's all these people looking at my mom. And she went inside, David, My dad's like, son, you're going to have to move, We'll give you a couple years. And then that's where we got lucky and found the building in Jefferson, the old General Electric plant. But my dad lost his liberty. We had people, we had trucks coming in and out. It had to happen. Like we were busting at the seams anyways. And that was just the catalyst. And, we got a little testy, Dad and I, but I tell you what, our relationship is better than ever because he's got his liberty back. This is what's your privacy worth?
Oh yeah, right.
Infinite. I kept trying to put dollar value on things that had infinite value. And that's where
Especially with hearing how it got started too, that it was more of a passion project. And I don't know if maybe you brought the scale to to the business, or if that was already in plans with your father. How was that relationship? Was it always going to be kind of a low level thing, just doing it because he liked it, or was the aspirations to make it this?
it'd be fun to get him in on this because my goal was always to like grow. I love maple syrup. I like everything about it. So you use a little bit of ingenuity. It's a very complex and difficult product to make as far as crops go. It's almost like double. Beekeepers got it easy. They do because the bees.
I hate bees. I'll probably take the the opposite of that. One sting and I'm done. But
Yeah.
But maple syrup's complex.
It takes a lot of syrup it takes a lot of sap just to make syrup, and I don't think people realize that.
True.
Living in Madison, I've got a lot of sugar maple trees, and I know that that's what they use to make maple syrup because it produces the most sap. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just talking to them.
Let them know how to make maple syrup there, Lee.
But I'm like, man, maybe I'm going to tap these trees and make my own maple syrup. And then I'm like, well, you got to boil like 6 gallons of sap just to get 1 gallon of syrup. I'm like, that's a lot of work, man.
It's true. Well, it was like, it depends. Like there's years where across the way there, we do tap red maples or soft maples. And the sugar content is lower, but you still make pretty good syrup. It's more darker. It's like a darker color, a little bit more flavor, maple flavor. But sometimes it takes 87.1 gallons. So if your bricks is 1%, it takes 87.1 gallons. It's kind of the rule.
Really?
So if it's 2%, you divide it by 87.1. So whatever your bricks is, you divide 87.1 by your bricks, and it tells you how many gallons it takes to make a
Holy
gallon of
cow.
maple syrup.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So it varies. Everybody wants to give it, how many gallons? Well, I can give you an average for the year.
Sure.
Right.
But it actually varies, and that's one of those things like, I just think of stories that people will talk to me all the time about maple syrup, usually in the fall when leaves change colors.
Right.
Yeah. Right now. Yeah.
How's the maple season? And you're like, well, actually, maple syrup's made in March.
Yeah. Right. Early spring people don't realize that. Right.
And the same few people always ask me, so now I just say, it's good, buddy.
Business is sweet.
Yes.
It's a lot more complicated than most people think. Like Lee said, you know, everybody gets the idea of, there's a tree right out there. You put in a spigot, get a bucket, and there you go.
Put it on pancakes. Yeah.
If you had to, give it to a lame person, what's the overview, very basics, on how you go from tapping a tree to getting a ready to go product?
From tree to table, right?
Yeah.
You have to have maple trees. So that's number one. And then you actually have to have maple trees in a place that you have winter. So there's only 13 states that make maple syrup.
Interesting.
In the country of any sort of scale.
Huh.
There are some microclimates out west where they're attempting to make syrup. I'll get on tangents. You'll have to open
No, it's fine. It's
Just
fine.
so you know. So so you tap a tree in early spring, late winter, and what happens is the maple tree will store the sugar down in the roots during the winter, and then as soon as you get the sun coming out, and the tree's like, "Hey man, it's time to wake up. I got to feed these leaves."
Okay.
It'll send the sap up to start the buds, get things going, and then as soon as it gets cold again at night, the tree's like, "Whoa, we got to run the sap back down." So what happens is you have sap running up and down the tree.
Interesting.
That's why I tell people it's a perfect business for somebody that has, depression. because
Literally built
off
on
tree
the
down
up
the
and
tree.
down.
Yeah, it's a perfect business for me. So I talk about that openly. The manic, it's perfect for a manic depressive. This business. I didn't even finish the. I got off tangent about making syrup.
It's all right.
I started at the tree and stopped. So you need winter. I am going to go back and just kind of finish how you make syrup.
Please. Yeah.
So you collect the sap, and then all we don't add anything. Actually, we remove water. So most crops start with something small like a seed, like corn and soybean. They start with a little bit and they end up with a lot. In maple, it's the opposite. We start with a lot of sap and we end up with a little bit. All it is removal of water. So we could say fractional distillation or boiling.
Or boil.
It sounds better to say
Oh, yeah, it
fractional
does.
distillation, but that's where the flavor comes from. All we do is caramelize sugar. That's it. So you either do that, you do that with flame, but 90% of the work is done with reverse osmosis. We actually push the water out,
Interesting.
and then the remaining sugar, we use it backwards from what you would in your kitchen door where you'd stick your glass of water in, and the pure water comes out and all the minerals and stuff are rejected. We use it backwards. So our reject is actually pure water,
Oh, wow.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, what is the byproduct, right? It's
pure water.
Water.
So-
Yeah.
It's when you look at a reverse osmosis, it looks so complex, and you're just like, "Holy crap!" But it's so simple. One thing goes in, two things come out.
Yeah.
So one thing comes in, which is sap. Two things come out: pure water and concentrated sap, which we just call concentrate. So to the tune of 88% is pure water. And what we'll do with that is we'll use it for washing. We'll actually use that to clean our equipment.
Oh,
and I've been partnering with breweries like it's tree water, man.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I did make a beer with Grist House Brewing in Pittsburgh. We hauled some tree water down there, and they made a beer, and then used their maple syrup. So it's like the maplest beer ever, is what I call it.
Yeah. There
Oh,
you
I
go.
love that. Yeah, using every little piece of it.
Then
Yeah.
age it in a maple bourbon barrel.
There you go.
If you know, I don't know if I told you guys, but they won gold at Great American Beer Festival this year.
Oh,
for
awesome.
Their maple bourbon barrel aged stout.
Congratulations.
with-
Yeah, that's
Those was our
awesome.
barrels.
Look at that.
Yeah.
There we go.
I haven't had a chance to try it, but it was called their 8th anniversary, and they're just good brewers.
Yeah.
They make good beer there.
That's a hell of a feather.
So,
feather in the cap, man.
Getting
That's
back
great.
to your question, I'm going to just dominate this entire podcast.
That's good. Yeah.
This is what it is. We're setting up T-balls for you,
Yeah.
man. This is it.
Just dominate this entire podcast. But I like craft beer, and one of the things I noticed about the maple industry is it was a dusty category. Like you go and you'd see bottles, and literally, I say it figuratively and literally, it had dust on it.
Yeah.
So, I'm selling syrup and I'm competing with these huge, call them large breweries. I mean, if you look at it, I
Yeah.
was like, I coined the term craft maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
All I did is I borrowed a lot of ideas from the beer industry.
Sure.
But one of the first beers, it was called Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale. And it was a strong ale aged in bourbon barrels. It was my first experience of a barrel aged beer. And it was amazing. Do you guys remember when it was
Oh yeah.
good?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Remember
absolutely.
it was good.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
college.
I always tell people like it's not the same product that it
Right.
was. I think they're either using rinsed barrels or using barrels too often. But when you first tried that product, I think I was telling you guys, when you'd find it on draft and the bartender didn't know they were supposed to use a snifter, that was a good night.
Absolutely.
Right.
You would, get a 16 ounce.
Every once in a while, you'll still come across that,
Yeah.
and sometimes I correct them, sometimes not.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, every one of those times I had to call my wife to come get me.
Right. Oh yeah.
But
Especially
that
if
beer
you're not ready for it.
actually had me thinking like, there's two stories. This is the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, and some guys up in Middlefield, some Amish guys, got some syrup in from Kentucky that these farmers had stored in plastic drums. And they were trying to save a buck, so they got some food grade plastic drums, and they put their maple syrup in. And when you make maple syrup, it's very hot. It actually is 7 degrees over the boiling point of water is maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
So they put that in these plastic barrels, and whatever the flavor that was in there absorbed into the syrup, and it was an artificial lemon flavor.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
Oh, like a pledge kind of thing.
Exactly, that's perfect. I always say dumb suckers,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
but it was like it was like a soap, and it just went right into the syrup, and I'm just like, Irv, I can't use this. And I'm driving home, I'm like, these guys blew 25 grand because they wanted to save,
Yeah.
whatever, $2,000
Oh, my
on
gosh.
drums. I'm like, they're from Kentucky. They could have just used some bourbon barrels. At least it would have added value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Light bulb.
That's it. That
Yeah.
was the light bulb moment. So I instantly started researching it, and I'm like, there was like 3 people doing it. I was like, crap. I thought I came up with an
Yeah.
original.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And even then, it wasn't original. I'm just borrowing from the beer industry.
Mhm.
Right.
And so I'm just like, you know what? Other guys are doing it. I'm just going to do it better. I'm going to come up with our own process. And we did. And it felt kind of like when I was in high school. I was in a band, and I called Shane over, and I'm like, Shane, dude, I just wrote this song. He peels out, and he comes over, and he's like, play the song, Nate. I'm playing the song. He goes, Nate, that's Hell's Bells. And I grew up on like Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Eagles, like, let's see, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I grew up on Loggins and Messina. Fleetwood Mac was probably the rockinest band that my parents had on record. I had no idea, but I had to tell that story every now and then because it had the same feeling where you were like, listen to this song I wrote. Check out this maple syrup
Right.
I
Oh my
invented.
God.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
right.
Put it in a barrel. Yeah.
So actually, Steve Stallard was the man that invented bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. He's out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the festival that we're having on November 12th with the Craft Maple Brew Fest. He was the first recipient
Really.
Oh,
of the
cool.
award because
Yeah.
of, I call it innovation. I mean, he really changed the maple industry to this day. And what a lot of people don't realize is the maple industry is kind of small, but that product didn't take away from existing business. It brought new consumers into the maple industry.
Sure.
Makes
Because
sense.
bourbon was so hot and has
Yeah.
been and still is.
Mhm.
People, you want to try maple syrup? No. Do you want to try bourbon barrel aged? Oh man, they would do a
Right,
180,
everybody
come
peeks
back.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's got a story, but people have
Right.
their own preconceived notions of when they see maple syrup, and you see a lot of bias in decision making, especially when we do shows. That's why we removed everything and just used bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. We did a show at the IX Center, I don't know, 9-10 years ago. We brought every maple product we had, and it just looked like clutter.
Yeah.
And the next year, we brought just one product, the barrel aged maple syrup, made everything clean, neat. It didn't confuse everybody.
Yeah.
And they voted us best new vendor.
In the your second year.
Yeah, second year.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because honestly, we were so proud of all the products we have, and this is common with farmers, is we were proud of everything, the candy, the cream, and all the different products, that it just, the consumers, they're just all, it's overloaded, and they're just not going to notice you.
Right.
So we just simplified it, and that product just took off, and then it led to a problem with having maple barrels, which is a high-class problem. And that's when we started to, one of the first brewery to, work with us was actually Goose Island.
Okay.
We're going back to 2014. So what is that, 8 years ago?
Yeah. Gosh, it doesn't seem like it, but wow.
Yeah, 2014. Might have been 2013. We sold them some bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. Maple syrup in a barrel. So, and we just hauled these barrels to Chicago. We were so excited.
Yeah.
And it was stored right here. Like,
Get out of here.
Yeah, right here. Like this whole thing, like, started here. And we'll talk about some of the brewers that have been here and the barrels that have come through here. And I can show you nicks in there where the barrels like dented the kitchen cabinets.
Oh, I love that.
And there's just so much history. But it was the barrels. The first guy to get maple barrels from us was John Nayway at Thirsty Dog Brewing.
Okay.
So Brandon Benson was the brewer. And John came here with his daughter. I made him pancakes, and he just, to this day, that was one of their better, beers they ever made. And I always liked working with John. And then Joe was there, so I think we'll see Joe and John at the Craft Maple Brew Fest, and then Brandon has started his own brewery in Alliance, Ohio, called Aeonian Brewing.
Yeah.
And he's gotten some barrels from us.
Okay.
So the beer industry is kind of, everybody knows everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
It's a big
imagine I
community.
imagine the industries are kind of the same way in that aspect. Of
There's
a lot
way
of
more
people
sharing,
know.
and this is what I like about the brew industry, is they're way more collaborative.
It's definitely like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and we talk about this all the time too, where when we were entering this community, we thought there would be like some pushback that they didn't want us coming in and talking to the brewers about what they do, and absolutely the opposite. They welcome us with open arms. They want to come in and talk about what they're doing and how they're collaborating, and all the brewers know each other. They're all friends. They brew together, stuff like that. It's I like the community over competition in the beer industry for sure.
Yeah.
They want you to succeed.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I think the brewing industry kind of understood that success is not a limited resource. That,
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
A lot of people, it's called the zero sum theory or fallacy. But there's only a limited amount of success in farming and ag it's rampant in adults in the office space, and it's the idea that there's only a limited amount of success. So if someone's doing well, somewhere someone's not doing well,
Right.
and that is such a fallacy. And in the maple industry, it's rampant, and it just, hey, if that guy's doing well over there, then somewhere someone's not.
Right.
And
It's
there's
taken away from us.
There's a desire to knock somebody down a peg, which
Right.
will somehow bring somebody up, which is not even remotely true.
Right.
Sure.
Whereas if we all work together, we can make all of us better and be better together.
Yeah,
Right.
just the industry's growing. The maple industry's growing at it's doubling. It doubled in the last 10 years. It's going to double in the next 15. If there was a limited amount of success, that
Right.
means there would be no growth.
Right. Exactly. That's yeah.
Clearly the opposite is happening.
So in the beer industry, you could argue there might be a little bit of oversaturation with so many people getting into the industry, and I could see it being a little bit more competitive today.
Right.
But hopefully brewers are still collaborative. I just sense, as I've met brewers and worked with them, and I never hear another brewer talk bad about a place they work.
Never. Right.
Nope.
Right.
Never. I have never heard another brewer badmouth the place they worked.
No.
Have you?
No.
I've
Not at
been
all.
with brewers for almost 10 years, and I've never heard another brewer say a negative thing about a place they work.
Yeah.
Right. Whether there was or not, right, you're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
Like you said, like Lee said, I mean, that the community there is just incredible. It's kind of, I mean, iron sharpens iron kind of thing of these guys collaborating,
Definitely.
pushing for innovation within it. As you mentioned, within the past, 10 years or even less, not just in this area, but all over, the craft brewing scene has really blown up. And there is a lot of saturation. There's a lot of competition. And at least at this point, I don't think it's made that change. It still has that tight knit group.
And it'll ebb and flow. I think as new people come on and the community takes them on, they're the ones that can't hack, and it'll come back to there'll always be, I think, that core group that wants to work together and succeed.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the more interested people are in craft beers, the more they'll try other craft beers. The more that if I brew a beer, if I say, hey guys, try this. If you like this, try this. If the more that everybody does that, the better.
Right.
And that's what they do.
There's always been, at least in my mind, a little bit of a gateway to get into the craft beer scene. It's a little intimidating at first for people who've never, they see it all over the place. It's a lot more accessible now, and different seltzers and fruit beers and everything. There's a lot more modes of entry. But initially, people saw it as, you were drinking Bud Light or you were drinking something else.
An IPA full of hops.
Right, exactly. And so I think over the past couple of years, it's definitely got a lot more. It's a lot easier to kind of get in and get that first step into the craft beer scene. And then, like you said, hey, what do you like? Do you like this? Great, we've got a recommendation here, or you have to try this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you
I
mentioned.
have questions for you guys.
Oh,
Sure.
please. Yeah.
So I am curious on like your some of your favorite craft beer experiences, either having gone to a brewery and just had a beer at a beach somewhere, or just your favorite. And I'm sure there's several.
Oh, sure.
Like if you could name like your favorite IPA experience or your favorite barrel aged beer experience, I am curious in those two because that's what I care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm extreme again.
Yeah,
Manic
yeah,
depressive.
absolutely.
I'm too extreme.
I love it. I'll let you think on this because I have one that came up
Great.
immediately. And you were talking before, and it actually was one of my absolute first entry into the craft beer scene. And I was in the Coast Guard after high school. I was stationed in Rochester, and one of the guys that I lived in the same apartment complex with, we were on the same schedule, so I'd be off, and he was really into home brewing. I was maybe 21 and a day old, And I went over there and he invited us over to see the setup and help us with the homebrew setup. And I had no interest, I had no expectations, anything, and I was blown away by just how much care and creativity went into it. And I went through the whole thing. He walked me through it, everything. And his wife, I remember this to this day. I can taste it. His wife made cookies out of the mash.
No kidding.
Yeah, never seen that before, never heard of it. And it was just so cool to see it used from beginning to the end. He had a great setup. He had about 3 or 4 beers. He had all the info, the ABV, the IBUs on a little chalkboard. He has a tap system that ran up to the front. And that's what got me into kind of trying to get my feet in a little bit. But seeing that process early on before even kind of just dabbling at the bar and having a few I think it made my appreciation initially to see it from start to finish. Just, all right, this is it. This is going to be my personality now. Like this is who I am. But you talked about another one of where, a certain beer, every time you have it, kind of brings you back to that one point.
Memory.
Yeah. And for me, that was one of my all-time favorite stouts. It's Victory at Sea. It's Ballast Point Brewing over on the West Coast. And to me, that was more of the first extreme beer that I had. It's a coffee stout. I believe it's right around 9-10%. And for me, we talk about it on the podcast a lot. I'm like you. I want the most extreme. Give me a barrel aged 10-11%, or like a crazy sour with Skittles or something like that. I want the craziest extreme that you can come up with. And for me, that beer was like the step into that realm of like out of the comfort zone and really kind of pushing my palate to see what's out there and see what could be done. And for me, like coffee stouts I'll always go to them. And that was what started it for me.
It had a coffee in it.
Was that? Yeah.
It had a coffee. Well, a lot of those you can taste a coffee note even if it doesn't have coffee.
Correct. And then we actually, some shipmates of mine that were in the Coast Guard as well, started their own coffee roasting business. And they've been dabbling into the craft beer scene of kind of the same thing with coffee roasting, of how can we get our product in the hands of different brewers and kind of collaborate with them to come up with different beers. So we sampled one that had their coffee in it. And it's just, it's cool to see the collaboration with all these different industries. Again, coffee, brewing, maple, it's a lot more behind the scenes. It's not just, like you said before, we've got the guys came over from Goose Island and are making them pancakes. You know,
Yeah,
what's
yeah, yeah.
what's the story behind it? You know, you could look at it and just see a beer on tap and go, oh man, okay, they put a little additive in it or whatever, but there's actually a whole history and a story behind it.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leland, your beer stories.
My beer stories, man. You guys are such good storytellers. I wish you would have let me go first. Now,
It was like I had a Bud Light in college once.
It's like going on after Chappelle.
yeah, exactly. Talking after both of you guys telling these awesome, like, beautiful stories. Like,
Get a drink.
I don't know. Like one of the, I like brewery experiences from everywhere. You know, one of my favorite ones I think that really sticks out. Like, man, this guy is just living the dream. Like that Ryan from Clovenhoof here in Ashtabula. Just like I've always been a fan of like metal music, and just like he's just brewing beer, listening to metal music, and his whole brewery is like metal themed. And so that experience really sticks out as one of my favorites, I think. And even from like the collaboration aspect you guys were talking about with him, I think his sister owns a coffee shop in Ashtabula as well, and they collaborate and make different coffee beers all the time. Like I think that was my first coffee ale that I had there, and that was really good. You know, because usually what they do is they put the coffee in like the darker beers, like the porters and the stouts, but this was actually like a an ale that had it, which was different too. But as far as experiences go, I enjoy them all. That was just one that stuck out because it's just like, man, this is it. This is.
Do you think part of it's because you're there? And,
Yeah, oh,
and
absolutely.
he's actually accessible.
Yeah,
And you
he
can
is.
see it. You know, it's a smaller brewery, and all of that still goes on in larger breweries. But don't you think that that's part of the?
Oh, sure.
appeal?
Absolutely.
Having the glass right there, you go into Clovenhoof and you can see everything when you're there. You know, you come up to the top and you can see the brew process and everything.
He'll take in the back. They're blasting death metal. It's all good, man. It's
Yeah,
cool.
I mean,
Like,
it was just
no, it's fun.
you could see with Ryan. I mean, the whole business there, you could just see his personality coming through,
Which was
you
cool,
know,
yeah.
with everything he done.
And just a nice space too, like really clean and nice and well done, and
Yeah,
kind of an industrial look, but it was really a nice space too.
And demand exceeds the supply now, right?
Yeah.
So he's looking for ways to brew more beer. One of the things you may not know about Ryan and my time of getting to know him is he's very disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
For a young entrepreneur, I'm impressed with his ability to say no and stay on task. Because I'm the opposite. I'm about ideas and trying things. And maybe he's just learned that discipline because I'm always like, hey, Ryan, what about this? You know? I'm like the little devil that pops up in the show. And I'm like supposed to be there like to help coach and like be a mentor with
Yeah.
business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this guy, I admire his determination to stay focused and be true to what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like he sticks to a plan.
yeah.
And that's not normal in a young entrepreneur.
Yeah, you can tell just the way he looks, like how dedicated he is to himself. Because I know he like works out and lifts, and like
Yeah.
just the way he looks, you can tell that he's very dedicated to things. Like
It's, you know,
in a nice way. Like
I remember asking my mentor, like, he was so helpful to me and it had infinite value. And he once said, all I ask is like two things or one thing he asks is that I pay it forward. And then the second thing is I don't think you realize how much it helps me too.
mm-hmm.
Because with all these entrepreneurs that I meet and see and talk to, I see myself.
Sure.
And it's just a reminder of, oh my gosh, I need to get myself back on track too. And
Yeah, absolutely.
you're reflecting more as I'm talking to young entrepreneurs, like, oh my gosh, I see myself.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's what's nice. A lot of these interactions that we have, it's not just the brewers. A lot of times end up being the owners, you know, the people that are directly involved in the business. And the one reoccurring theme is the forever student. You know, people are
Yeah.
always trying to learn and better themselves and be able to push and innovate and continue to grow.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just something about that industry, but it seems to be the reoccurring theme everywhere we go. Everybody we sit down to, that's kind of the one thing. And you touched on it, having a mentor in the sport, excuse me,
all of it
in the
life,
field
sport.
is like, yeah, I mean, it's so invaluable. And I think there's more people out there that are resources to be a mentor that can help you out. Is like you said, we've learned through this is all you have to do is ask and reach out. You know, there's people out there that want to help.
It's true.
But as you said,
Absolutely.
it's not just a one-way street. You know, helping somebody out is going to come back and teach you things that you don't even expect to learn. So,
And it's a mirror.
right.
You know, you can sit there and go, oh my gosh, this is me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Right.
And you know, and comfort is the enemy of innovation. So the more you are able to look at yourself and make those changes, the better your business, the better you are as a person.
Yeah, it's not easy to do.
Look at this, we're getting all deep and introspective
cow,
here,
man,
man.
yeah.
Like,
It touches. So I have two beer stories.
Yeah, I wanna hear your beer story.
I think probably the first craft beer experience I had, I was up in Kane, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and they had Great Lakes, the Christmas ale on draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a year in which it was good.
Yeah.
And it's just, that was my first experience of like, all the spice, and it was potent.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was like 2005 or something. And that was like, wow. Like it made me want to go to Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, let's go to Kane. Why? Well, they got this beer on draft that you
Yeah.
get anywhere, but that time and experience and enjoying yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I was visiting a customer, and that like really kind of made me start trying other, because I didn't really have beers,
Yeah.
up until that point. And then the other one was with my brother-in-law, who's from San Diego, Ballast Point.
Yeah.
And I always say, do you remember when Sculpin was good?
Because there's just so many variations. They've gone too crazy.
Well,
with
the
it.
original Sculpin, I'm in San Diego it's always sunny there,
Yeah.
right? It's just a beautiful, see, when we're growing up in Northeast Ohio, right? People say when you retire, you need to move to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lie that's started by all the people who live in San Diego.
They just don't want you to come there.
They just don't want you to come there.
They just don't want more competition. But I'm drinking this Sculpin on like right there, like on the street, and it's sunny, and I'm just like, this is the greatest beer I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was my first like, this is the greatest IPA experience, hanging out with my brother-in-law. And I just, now when I try it, I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
does not bring me back to there.
Sure.
So those type of, that's usually if I meet somebody that says they know a little bit about craft beer, I'll usually say, do you remember when Sculpin was good? And they'll laugh because it did. It used
Yeah,
to be
it
great.
used to be good.
Like I said, they've got all the different variations. I think they've just gone too far with trying to, I don't know. I mean, they had at least like 10 or 12 different variations.
Well, in
of what we
Constellation
got now.
bought them. There were some brewers that I know
Mhm.
in the San Diego area. I guess they were told to just start making this beer as cheap as you can.
Really?
Yeah. When you pay $1 billion, then you go, oh crap, the numbers don't.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, what do we sell the most of? Okay, make that cheaper.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of, so some of the craft breweries, and I guess I joke about a couple guys that they had a YouTube channel called the Erie Better Beer Bureau. Have you ever watched any of their?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Well, it's kind of disbanded, but a couple guys had reached out to me, and this is going back before the original Craft Beer Festival in 2018. And they reached out, and they're like, "Hey, we want to come out there." And I just say, these beer nerds came over, which
Yeah.
I say it affectionately.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was telling them about,
Hey.
no one had a clue as to what we were doing in Jefferson, Ohio.
Yeah.
Just some of the breweries we've worked with, just I have to go back, but the Goose Island Bourbon County Stout, I think we've done 3 variations with them.
Wow.
Stone Brewing, actually made a beer with Stone Brewing. Modern Times, so there's a couple other San Diego
Yeah.
breweries. Southern Tier, we've done some stuff with Great Lakes. I wish they did more barrel aging
Mm-hmm.
than the Canadian Breakfast Stout with Founders.
Right.
Trying to just think. Peter Kiley down at Monday Night Brewing in Atlanta. I think he's a savant when it
Really?
comes to barrel aging. Yeah, he just makes some of the best barrel aged beers I've ever had, and he used our barrels exclusively, and just some of the different. I don't want to leave a brewer out.
Yeah. Right.
That's my
Yeah.
fear.
Sure.
But Andrew down at Intuition in Jacksonville, Kyle at Grist House, and I'm just going through. We've worked with Fatheads. Some of my favorite stories is walking through Fatheads with Fred, who's a farmer with me, and Matt Cole's given us that's his name, right? The guy that does all the IPAs. I think his name is Matt Cole. Matt.
We'll go with Matt. If
Yeah.
not, we'll voice over his
Yeah,
actual
just-
name. We'll put it in there.
Yeah, take Leland's voice and make
Right.
it.
Yeah. There you go.
But yeah,
Not
and
his
Fred
deep
just
voice.
grabbed a hop cone and popped it in his mouth. And he was like, whoa, and it was too late. It was in there, and then Fred is a farmer. He's like walking around for like 10 minutes chewing on this hop cone. And he's just like, do you want to spit that out? And Fred's like, mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep, I do. Very.
Like, did you make a mistake? Yes.
Yeah, I got it. It's driving me nuts now.
Oh man. I'll say, do you have any? I mean, any one of those experiences jump out?
Of going to breweries.
Yeah, or different collaborations that you guys have done. What would be one of as far as the
Breakside.
product that comes out? Which one would be your go-to?
like if I say a barrel-aged beer I really enjoy.
Yeah, or one that you've had a hand in. You know what I mean?
Well, I've had a hand in a lot.
Yeah.
Breakside made a whole out in Portland made a whole line of beers with our maple bourbon barrels.
Very cool.
The Canadian Breakfast Stout, due to the heritage, I still think the Bourbon County Stout, that product is just so good. And there's a whole mindset about, well, they're not really craft beer anymore because they're bought by InBev, and I understand that. And the example of that I can give personally is I was lucky enough to buy the original brewery that was on Clybourne in Chicago that Goose Island started on.
Really?
Yeah, and I hauled it to my facility here in Jefferson. And I, having worked with them, I'm like, hey, excuse me, if you ever get rid of this brewery, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're putting in this new brewery, and I'm like, I get this call like a month later. It's like, hey Nate, you want this brewery? I'm like, yes. So I bought it, and I remember hauling it. It was cool. There's pictures. Somebody sent me a picture of it going down I-90 on the back of a flatbed.
Get out of
And
here.
it had all the original, like Honker's Ale, the Goose IPA, like it had all the original stickers.
Get out of here.
What's the one that's the weeded ale, the 312? Is that what
Okay.
it's called?
Mm-hmm.
So there all these stickers on these breweries, and I was so proud of this that I told my team, I'm like, hey, we're gonna use these for storing syrup and everything, and we got them all set up, and I'm like, are these gonna work? And they're like, no.
Oh no.
But I remember putting a thing on LinkedIn. This is where I was going with it being InBev and corporate.
Yeah.
And I just put on there like, hey, I bought Goose Island Brewery, and then I thought about it. And if you have a LinkedIn account, LinkedIn used to be good too about 8 to 10
Right.
years ago. Now
Right.
it's just garbage. But I remember like 25 people from InBev's legal department looked at my profile. And I remember all these attorneys and lawyers like looking at him like, oh,
You're just watching it, but somebody viewed your profile. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
not another
it's
one.
like they're sitting there going, well, they're probably weighing it like, let's go sue a maple farmer. That's not going to look good.
Yeah, right.
Right.
You know,
Right.
somebody probably got in trouble for selling that to me for scrap. But I thought it was always a pretty good story, and that was my inkling that okay, it was craft beer, and now it's big business.
Yeah.
And they got to
Right.
protect that brand, and I understand it.
Mhm.
Sure.
But I ended up selling most of the brewery to a fella that started at Goose Island and brewed on that brew pub, and he started a brewery in Knoxville.
And he brought back the
He bought,
same
yeah,
equipment. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool, and he was the right guy because when I put it on Pro Brewer, I had the brewery for sale on Pro Brewer, and had all these people like kicking the tires, wanting it for nothing.
Mhm.
Right? It's like, dude, buy the next Goose Island brewery that comes up for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Right, exactly. You're
So
not,
it
you're
was
not just
one-
buying the equipment. I mean, you're buying the
Yeah.
story behind it.
It was
too.
all JV Northwest. It was 1988 or 87, somewhere in there, and it's just the nostalgia
Right.
to be able to have a piece of that's an OG.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It's a huge piece in the craft brewing world.
yeah, and how many guys I've met that have brewed there and started their own brewery. Like that's a big, I don't know what you call it, incubator for craft beer in this country.
Yeah.
People that brewed at Goose and then went to other places. Like I appreciate the history, and I really like Bourbon County Stout, and they treat me well.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy being a part of that, and they really help my business grow by promoting our business on their social media and stuff like that. So
That's really important.
the Goose, I like going there, and you know how like you can't get tickets because like 30,000 people try to get 2,000 tickets,
Okay.
and I think that's why I like it so much is I get to go anytime
Right.
I want.
Yeah,
Just maybe
right.
pick up the phone. Yeah, here we
I
go.
want to come in. And it's like you got tickets, like not really. I get.
Yeah, right.
I get a little
I got my own
badge.
tickets.
It says I'm important. So I think that was a good experience. And then when those craft beer guys came to my facility and they're looking at my wall of beer and they go, "Oh my gosh, that beer right there! Do you know how much that beer's worth?" I'm like, "No, you want to drink it?"
Why? You're thirsty?
And it was a Toppling Goliath. It was a
Oh, wow.
KBBS, and
Mhm.
Clark Lourie. I'd reached out to him, and we connected about the first craft beer, and they just weren't in Ohio yet.
Mhm.
And I had no idea. And the man sends me this beer, and it's like in this wooden like
Oh,
special
yeah.
cover, and I'm just like, and these guys were like, "That's like a $950 beer." I'm like, "You want to
You're like,
drink it?"
oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah.
Wow.
And what's funny is those guys, which you'll see them at the beer fest. we went to the cooler, drank. Their hands were shaking.
Yeah.
Oh,
geez.
because they have had a lot, but they'd never had that or even seen it.
Wow.
And one of the coolest things that happened is I shared that beer, and like the next week or two, Clark sent me another one.
Oh, there you
Like,
go.
out of the blue. So I have always been a sharer.
Yeah.
Like, having that up on a shelf, like, what is that going to do?
Right.
But to have that experience with those guys,
Right.
where we just were at the Maple, the Sugar Works, and drinking a beer that is number one on craft. What is it? Number one on Beer Advocate
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
is that beer, and that's one of those moments where you think about, like,
Oh,
hey,
sure.
that was a cool experience.
That was one
For
of those-
sure.
One of those get, put good out, you get good back. Kind
Yeah.
Of thing. Like you said, wasn't expecting it, shared it with everybody, and next week you get another one.
But I'll tell you, that was a good beer. But that I made a maple barrel aged beer with Ryan, and I want to say he has made, in my opinion, one of the best barrel aged beers I've ever had, and he just hasn't done it again.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah. We'll go bug him. Make sure he does it.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just and I've had them all. Like
Yeah.
I've had a bunch of them, and that one, Bissell Brothers Brewing's another one out in Maine that I got to go visit. They've gotten some barrels from us. Like I do it like a little bit selfishly. Like I seek out brewers that I want to work, like beer that I like.
Yeah.
Like, what's the other one? Ellicottville. And today I was talking to Hamburg Brewing. Like I've worked with these guys. I seek out companies I like and I want to work with, and people like I have a no D-bag rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, being in the position to do that is awesome too. Being in a place to do that is really good.
But
That's
a lot
cool.
of it comes from like in the barrel industry. Like I was lucky and fortunate enough to find somebody that was willing to work with me, and that was Speyside Cooperage. Aaron Willett, he knew everybody in the brewing industry, and he just kind of, we worked together. Like he would travel. He's like, hey, I want to be at Stone. Do you want to go? And I'd go meet these guys.
Yeah.
Like, and I was cool with, buying barrels from Aaron, selling them back. And, to this day, we talk, I text him. He doesn't work for Speyside anymore, but that man helped me.
Yeah.
And, he was, it was not easy when we first started to find barrels. It really wasn't in 2000, like 2008, 2009, like early, it just wasn't easy to find barrels. And he helped us, and we helped him too. It was very mutually beneficial, but I got to go to Founders, drop off barrels, meet those guys. It's been cool to be a part of, a big, a product that people like and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But every now and then I'll meet people that tell stories about, stories I was in. It's completely not true.
Right.
And I think we were talking about this. I don't even correct them.
Yeah.
It's just like, but you'll meet Luke at Sonder Brewing, and he's like a student. Like he follows and is just watching brewers and learning from brewers. And I really think at some point, they better keep him because he is talented and he is somebody who's constantly learning. And that guy is somebody you could build a brewery around.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple people we've met that were like that you could just tell are just insane
A step above.
students of their
Yeah.
craft. Yeah. That's the one thing I think a lot of people don't realize about, similar with the craft brew and maple is just how much goes into it.
How much
intricate it
chemistry
is.
there
Right,
is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, it's not just, the chemistry and everything, but a lot of passion that goes into it and innovation and to replicate it is not as simple as everybody thinks. It's once you get something dialed in, it really is. It's a constant to make sure that once I've got this right, let's get it dialed in and to be able to replicate it, and keep it going.
Have you noticed that brewers often, I find this interesting, some of them they're not big drinkers.
No.
Like, if I was making this beer, I'd be like drinking this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's kind of like me with maple syrup. Like, I've done enough barrel aged syrup. Like, I know what's good, but I'm not like putting it on everything. Because, and these guys are making these world class beers, but they're not like pounding beer after beer.
Yeah.
I guess it would be an
I imagine
occupational hazard.
maybe it's the same thing. I mean, are you drowning everything you own in maple syrup still?
Well, maple syrup's good on anything but the floor.
It may be something like that. You're around it so much.
Yeah,
You can't get high in your own
That always
supply
shocked
kind of
me.
thing.
Like, these guys are,
Yeah, right.
they're professionals.
Yeah.
That's what I've realized. Like, some of these brewers, like, they got the beer and everything, but they're pros.
Oh yeah.
They're not drowning themselves.
Within 5 minutes of sitting down, every time we get a brewer to go and they start going through their process and we see, behind the scenes and all the equipment and everything, you realize how much real work it takes and how much dedication these guys have. You're right. You have the connotation, right? The guy's got the beard, he's all scraggly, and no, it's way more than anybody thinks. And
I
that,
can
that
appreciate
was a
making
shocking
it.
system.
It's so much work.
Yeah, oh, it is. That's why people ask us if we want to get into it and stuff. And I like, man, I think I'd like to, because that we had talked about a little while ago, like judging like beer competitions. I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. Like, what does it take? But you kind of got to like, they want previous brewers to do it because then you know what goes into it, and like, oh, this you added too much of this to this beer, and to judge, and I like,
Right.
man, I don't know if I could ever have that level of knowledge to like be able to judge other people's beer. I can tell you if it tastes good, but not to tell you like, oh, this just didn't go long enough, or this just didn't have this ingredient, and oh man, that is tough.
It's the same thing with maple syrup. The reason I know what good syrup tastes like is I've made bad syrup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
there you
forgot
go.
to clean a piece of equipment that I should have, and they're like, "This is horrible."
Right.
And then somebody goes, "Did you clean your releaser?" And I'm like, "Oh crap."
Oh,
Yeah.
That's why. Right.
Yeah, and it's all in brewing. They say if you want to be a good brewer, you have to be good
You
at
have to
cleaning.
clean. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all
yep.
it is.
Same
All
with
here.
maple. If you want to make good syrup, you have to have clean sap and you have to have clean equipment.
Right.
There's a lot of correlations.
Sure.
There really is.
I imagine so. Is there ultimate experience, the ultimate mecca of something that you want to do? Whether it's brewing, whether it's with
Three Floyds. I haven't
Three
worked
Floyds.
with them.
Okay, there it is.
I've been kind of thinking about like breweries that I haven't worked with that I'd like to, but
Yeah.
Three Floyds. I think they make some great beers. There's some other barrel aged, like that have like Firestone Walker. We've had some conversations, but I haven't had a chance to like send barrels out that way.
Yeah,
But I know they're really known for their stouts.
sure.
Like Firestone Walker and Three Floyds are just two iconic breweries that
Right.
I'd like to work with
Yeah,
and do something with. But yeah, I'd say those two. And I haven't done anything with Ballast Point.
okay.
I don't really care. They got bought by Constellation. It's still Ballast Point.
Yeah,
Still a lot of history, and I love San Diego. See family there, but doing a maple barrel aged beer with those guys, I think that'd be cool. Deschutes as well.
yeah.
I've never done
That
anything
was a
like
game, yeah.
Fresh Squeeze is one of my favorite IPAs.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? I had one the other day, and I'm just like,
Oh, don't tell me that. No, no.
I was like, this isn't the same. Like it used to have this
tough.
peach, like
Oh yeah.
Yep.
it's like
so
a peach
refreshing.
flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that Deschutes Fresh Squeezed, but it's changed. It
That breaks my
has.
heart.
And I don't know squat. I'm a maple farmer,
Yeah.
but most of my I'm not like a beer connoisseur or anything, but I've had enough that it's like
Right.
if it doesn't click the memory back, I know it's not the same beer.
Sure. Sure.
But those are the breweries, Bissell Brothers as well, out in Maine. We've done some things with them. I'd like to do more. With
Is it
those
spelled
guys.
the same?
It is.
Okay. Nice.
It is, and it's funny because I have 3 boys, so they're Bissell Brothers. And when I went out there, I guess there's only 2 Bissell Brothers, and I met the dad at one of the breweries, and the shirt has BBB, Bissell Brothers Brewing, but I brought some shirts back from my boys.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's cool.
They all wear Bissell Brothers Brewing shirts. It's pretty funny.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That was the only reason I wanted to go out.
Right. Just for the t-shirts.
Yeah,
Right.
just for the swag. But they've treated me well, and they're being very cautious about their barrel age program and growing it.
Yeah.
There's obviously a ton of good beer. Like when I go to Vermont, I'm telling you, I could be a Vermont tour guide at this point because I work with a lot of Vermont maple farmers.
Sure.
Okay.
But the craft beer scene is awesome there.
Oh
The
yeah.
only problem is what I have to offer them. They don't like. We got maple syrup.
Yeah, they're in. Yeah, right. They're
Yeah.
in Vermont. Yeah,
Right,
I
it's
get
like-
it.
But I'm Dave Bissell. This is
Yeah,
this
right.
is a maple farm. And, like I really want to work with some of these like legendary brewers in Vermont because every time I go there, like a craft beer brewery pops up, and I'm telling you, have you ever been to Vermont?
So I used to live in Maine, and it was kind of the same thing. I mean, in that area at the time, that northern New England just had a huge, in the past 15, 10 years or so, it's just a huge explosion in that area.
And there's no
some
bad beer.
Awesome. No.
Like you go, like I don't care who it is. That's another like you're expecting like this. There's a brewery in San Diego that's like a surf pizza, surf. I don't know, but I've had beer there, and I was expecting like mediocre beer with my pizza.
Yeah.
No, it was amazing. Like,
Sure.
some of these, they're passing their craft on. Missoula, Montana is another one where you can go
Yeah.
from craft brewery to craft brewery, and you're just like,
How are they all so
it's
good?
hard to find a bad one.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, I'm looking forward to November 12th.
How did we get started in this Maple Beer Fest again? Were you initially involved, or is this something that you've just become involved in the last couple of years, or?
So actually, Megan Howe and I really got it started. So 2018 was the first year, and I was looking for a way because I saw the networking between some maple producers and brewers.
Mm-hmm.
So when I approached Steve Stallard, I know he was initially kind of like, why is a competitor wanting to work with me? And as we've gotten to know each other, like we're very similar in a lot of ways. We're collaborative. We can taste and we know our syrup and barrels.
Yeah.
We independently came up with some of the barrels that we think make the best syrup independently. Like he and I have come to the conclusion that these barrels from this distillery make the best syrup. And I just thought, Steve Stallard was a good guy to honor in the first craft beer fest. And we had a lot of the brewers that I worked with. I remember Andrew hopping in a car and driving from Jacksonville, I think he slept in his car halfway up, brought the beer himself. And one of the coolest things is we get together as, and the brewers talk to each other.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite things is having a campfire afterwards and having the brewers talk and share ideas.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the most fun things. And I wish we would do this more in Maple.
Yeah.
Because I'm an open book. I like to share, but watching the brewers. But that's how it started. And then, 2019, Eric Sorkin won, and 2020 and 2021, COVID won.
Yeah.
So we didn't have an event those 2 years. So this is like starting back up. We had a lot of good things going, and
Yeah,
we wanted
good
to get
things
the
are
momentum
coming.
back. And it got too big. So having the Boy Scouts of America handling this, and there's just like this transition because it's too big for my staff. It is like a whole full-time job, and they have
For
people.
sure.
This is what they do. They
Yeah.
put on events for fundraisers, for adults, for a good cause. So it is put on by Scouts, but this is an adult event.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
I wanted to make sure people understand
For
that.
sure. So the Craft Maple Beer Fest or Brew Fest, is at the Jefferson County Campground.
The fairgrounds.
Fairgrounds, So
Right
it's
across the street from our facility.
Yeah, I didn't even realize where you guys until we went out there. So it's kind of perfect being right there. So it's November 12th, 6 to 10 p.m. You can get your tickets online. We'll share the links and everything there. But as Nate said, it's going to be a little bit more of an intimate event here where we've been to tons of these different events, especially downtown in Cleveland, where you've just got
Huge.
so many people. You're waiting 20 minutes in line.
You can't get a beer
You
sample.
can't- you got a tiny little sample, and then you're shoot off to the next spot. You don't really get to enjoy it. So we're going to have some incredible food, some incredible desserts.
Incredible people. It'll be a lot of fun, a lot of entertaining people. Like Nate's going to be there. All these different brewers are going to be there to talk to. Really intimate, fun gathering. If
I'm
you want.
actually going to Goose Island made a beer a couple years ago. It's finally ready. It's called Bissell Stout.
Very
Really?
cool.
Yeah, so it is a Bourbon County Stout aged in maple bourbon barrels. There's not that many. I heard they're going to bottle this because they did make enough to bottle like a small amount, but I'm going to go pick that up and bring it to the event. So where are you going to get that?
Yeah,
And,
right.
Where are you going to get Bissell Stout?
How cool is that? We've always talked, you guys, if we've been in the brewing process, we just want to be the people that get to name the beers.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's cool to be able to have a Bissell Stout.
Yeah.
That's awesome. To me, that's the top of the world. Like once I get there, I made it.
Yeah, so that we'll have that beer, and it is more of an intimate setting. It is true. I know that we've sold more tickets than I think we did in 2019, and that was a pretty good
Fantastic.
showing. And I know the food's going to be excellent. I know that these guys know how to put on events, and it's going
They
to
absolutely do.
Yeah, and again, it's for a good cause. So the event is acting as a fundraiser for Boy Scouts of America. So you're going to have an awesome event. You're going to have a good time. We're going to get some really good beers, and at the end of the day, you can go back and say, hey, I did a good thing. This is going to help out.
Yeah.
I'm excited Toppling Goliath's coming.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a huge name.
That's
right?
a huge, as far as barrel aged beer, it's tough to beat that.
Yeah. It's tough to beat a lot of these names that are coming. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thirsty Dog. I don't have them all off the top of my head. It'll be on the website.
We'll have the full list
We'll
of
post the
everything.
information.
Correct. Yeah, we'll get all of them there, and I think we've got a pretty comprehensive list of all the beers that are going to be brought. So it looks like a
Food's
lot of them are
out.
bringing quite a few too. So
Yeah, there's more beer than we need.
yeah.
Like, there's way more beer than we need.
We'll
that a
see if
challenge?
you're right.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. We'll see if we can eat those words. But,
Yeah.
it's going to be an awesome event, and we're excited to be playing a small role in there and helping you guys out and getting to see the behind the scenes of everything here. But
Yeah, I know I got a call from the Boy Scouts, and they said they had I'm as a lifetime scouter, so I got a call from the Boy Scouts, and they said that they had this event that was benefiting the Boy Scouts of America, and it was a craft beer event. And she asked if I wanted to help, and I said, "Say less, I'm in." This is
that's all I needed to hear.
You had me at
craft
hello.
beer and Boy Scouts. I can help out. Let's do this. Like,
Right.
This is actually, for me, this is what I've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's been a big burden to carry to make sure it's successful.
sure.
And I want to be a part of it and help, but I can't carry the burden. Like, I'm glad you guys, that we actually have, what's it called when you have a group of people working together?
Oh,
Committee.
a committee.
A committee.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
we go. Yes. Yes. Like, in my team at Bissell Naval Farm is really happy that they don't have to carry the burden.
Sure.
Sure.
And it's just nice to have a team, and it's finally going somewhere. And I'm excited. I think this will be. It's probably going to get bigger and bigger.
Sure.
And to have community people that want it to succeed. I think it won't stay stagnant, because all these people, there's 10 people that have met so many times now and they all want it to do well. So I don't, it's going to go nothing but up from here for sure.
And then keeping it, I remember 2019 and looking at all these people and I'm presenting this award. I'm like, I can't believe that I got all of these brewers from around the country.
Yeah.
From Jefferson, Ohio.
Right.
You suckers.
Yeah. We say the same thing too.
Yeah.
We're like, wait a minute, you said you wanted to sit down with us? Like,
Yeah,
you,
right.
like, you don't even know what you're getting into. Yeah.
No, I like this, and I'm hoping this is going to help the podcast. I hope to be on again at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
We'd love to. I mean, it seems like you've got a well of information and experience, not only with your own business with the Maple, but having your background with all these different brewers and just being a guy that has an appreciation for craft beer too is really cool.
I'd have to sit down and have some of these beers.
Yeah, normally, most of
should
this
have
is
beers.
probably the first episode we've had just coffee. Normally, there's at least a couple of beers in, so we'll have to get
I
a
got to run a
couple.
nail gun. So
Oh yeah.
No, we'll have to get a couple of beers, some exactly that were made with the maple and try them all out.
Yeah, for sure.
that would be fun to do it again. After the event or
We'll
during
hold you-
the event. I don't care.
We'll hold you to it, man.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's on record. Now there's one question. This is a weird caveat. It'll probably just be a sound bite, but I'd be remiss if we didn't ask this because we have for every single episode.
Yeah.
So no, it's
It's a fun question. It's totally different.
It's a complete 180 from anything we've done. So you touched on it a little bit too, and I'm kind of glad you did already. Is the one question we said we wanted to ask everybody. We've interviewed brewers, we've had Guinness World Record holders, entrepreneurs, people from all different walks of life. And we're like, what's one question that everybody can kind of connect with? And that is, what album for you is a perfect album, top to bottom? It could be record, cassette, whatever, that you just put
Joshua
on,
Tree.
play.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think?
Joshua Tree.
Okay.
Me too.
Why?
I was what? It was 87 when that came out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of U2 and with Bono's voice and the edge and how that delay in that guitar. I know every word to every song on Joshua Tree.
I love that you had the answer so fast.
I love
too.
it. Normally, when we ask the question, it's like whatever pops into your head. I'm not even done asking, and that's what it is.
It's one of the few that I know every song. I think they're all good. And I like Joshua Tree.
There you go.
That's a great answer.
That's a good
we
one.
haven't had U2 yet.
No, not yet.
That's just the only one that I could ever listen all the way through.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly.
You didn't hit
put it on
fast
play.
forward because you're like, I don't like this song.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm,
there's
I'm
few-
assuming that's what you're.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few that you start on track one and you just leave it alone. You don't touch it,
Mm-hmm.
and just let it play out.
Yeah, that's the one.
I like it. What a
Yeah,
It's
great
got
answer.
to be a top album of all time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so too.
One
I
of.
think
Oh,
so.
And I actually got to go listen to them when they came to Cleveland. It was the first time I ever saw them.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I don't know who played before. I mean, the opening band was awesome too, but that was cool. my wife and I got to go see him.
I imagine if you're opening for U2, you know.
Yeah. It was a good show. But cool.
Right on.
Hey, thanks, guys.
One, thank you for sitting down and doing this, but rolling the red carpet out, obviously we're going to be pushing the Craft Maple Brew Fest for next week, but we want to roll the red carpet out for you. What do you got going on in the future? What do you want to let people know about? How can people help support, Bissell Maple Farm?
Yeah, I mean, we have plans to do a little more in our store. We have a new roof going on the front of the building. It's always been a goal it's the ugliest part of the building. Like, it's ugly. But we have these things called budgets.
Yeah, right.
And we're just not allowed to just
Can't just go buy breweries left and right. Yeah.
Dream squashers are like, no.
Those bean counters.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, excited about doing that store. But I think one of the reasons that we started really doing the YouTube channel in earnest is I wanted to tell our own story instead of, how rumors can get started. And I'd rather have people watch and get to know us.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if you're watching, somebody else can't tell your story.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think marketing, being able to meet the team and see what we do and really see how maple syrup's made. If you really want to see it, that's our YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just not a lot of it out there. And there's a lot of firewood channels. There's a lot of homesteading channels. There's not a lot of maple syrup channels.
No.
So we thought that and felt that we had I've been watching a lot of channels for a long time, and I've met some pretty good YouTubers that they're excited about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And we're starting to collaborate with some bigger YouTubers, and I think over time it is going to grow.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it because it's real. I wish I would have done it, longer.
Almost everybody says, yeah, I just wish I would have done it sooner.
And I got tired of saying that. And you know what? I'm like, there's a few channels I'm watching. I'm like, if this dude can do it, I
Yeah,
can
right.
do it.
Sure.
It's like,
Right.
this guy's got the personality of that post
Yeah.
right there. And he's got 100,000 subscribers. I'm like, holy crap! Like,
Yeah.
I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least I'm funny.
No, I watched a lot of them. I mean, once, just the introduction, for us being on this committee for, getting everything for the Brew Fest, I've watched tons of them. And it's been
I
nice
feel
to
like
get the insight,
We're doing a
the
good
little
job.
background.
Yeah,
Like,
for
I
sure.
feel like I tell everybody I'm the most unpopular YouTuber.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and you said you're the pioneer in the maple making and stuff in YouTube. And I know we're the pioneers in drinking podcasts because there is not a single one that exists besides ours.
Right, yeah, don't go looking. There are no others. This is it.
This is
That's funny. At least in Ashburn County and Rock Creek right now.
yeah,
Correct.
right.
Correct.
This is the
We
one
are the #1 podcast
in Rock Creek
in a
right
shed.
now.
Right.
At Bissell Maple Farm.
At Bissell Maple Farm.
Boom.
You won't find a better one.
Yeah.